Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. And this year is a new and hopefully much better year. So now that 2021 is here, we are really excited to move on from 2020. What a year it's been. So in doing so, we thought we'd both look back and into the future of the new year with this New Year's tag. So we have compiled a list of 15 questions that we're going to ask each other here and respond to them accordingly. And some of the questions we've changed more in relation to travel and what's to come for the new year, and also, like we mentioned, looking back at the previous year. So if you haven't already, we encourage you all to hit that big red subscribe button as well as that bell notification to get notified about our future videos. And don't forget about our Instagram. You can follow us at Our Unsettled Journey to get more access about what we do behind the scenes. So without further ado, let's move on to the New Year's tag. So the first question is, if you could look back at one memory from last year that you wish you could relive, what would it be and why?
One of the really awesome standout memories for me from 2020 happened pretty recently, right before the new year, was when I drove with a family member from Arizona all the way to Ohio, and we were moving some stuff. We did film a vlog there, so if you want to catch up on that, we will leave the information below for you. But it was a really cool experience to get the opportunity to travel by truck across the whole US. Usually I'm flying back and forth, so to drive and see the different scenery and some states that I hadn't seen was really a bucket list opportunity, and we really enjoyed the adventure of traveling and seeing the various sites along the way.
So for me, my favorite memory that we could relive again would be Jamaica, because even though we had a very interesting scenario, we would definitely do it again. Undoubtedly, it was a really great trip and experience. Especially we were very shocked that it actually happened in 2020, right before everything. So we're very thankful about that. And like we mentioned, even though we had a little bit of a mishap, we would definitely do it again. So you can definitely go ahead and check out that video right up here, and we should definitely recommend you give it a watch if you look forward to traveling internationally in 2021.
The next question we're going to ask one another is, what New Year's resolution in 2020 were you able to complete?
So for me, I would have to say, I know this sounds cheesy and everyone always says it, but I really wanted to travel more. So I would say that we accomplished that, to say the least. It's really hard, especially to keep a resolution to stick it out through the whole entire year. So honestly, I really forget what my 2020 resolutions were. But I would have to say it's always been just to travel more, so I'd say at least we accomplished that.
For me, I would say that a New Year's resolution I was able to stick with was working on my financial future. It's not something that I've ever really tried to work hard on. I didn't know a whole lot about. I was always in my younger 20s living in the moment, and now that we have some future goals that we want to accomplish, I took more thought into my financial future with Matt's help and was able to work on savings and also working towards retirement someday, and also some investing. So that was something that I never really focused on in the past, but I was able to stick with it in 2020 and hopefully many more years to come.
Moving on to the next question, what are 3 words you would use to describe the previous year? Well,
it's really hard to describe such a horrible year like 2020 was, and with one thing after the next, it seemed like 2020 would almost never end. If I had to put 3 words to describe 2020, I would have to say that 2020 was surreal, it was devastating, and it was relentless. And our hearts go out to all the families that were affected by 2020, and we're just so happy to be moving on and putting that year behind us.
Yeah, so if I were to describe the year, I would have to say it was unique, for sure. Unfortunate, because of everything that happened, and crazy. So here's hoping 2021 has much better words.
Moving on from that, how did you ring in the new year?
So we were lucky enough to ring in the New Year's together here in our very own apartment, so what's better than that? Luckily, Nikki's family was over, so they gave us some company. We just had some drinks, just sat on the couch, played some games, and watched the ball drop, and then literally went to bed. So Nothing as eventful as previous years, but nonetheless, spending it with family is what really matters. So the next question in relation to the previous one is, what is your dream place to bring in the new year?
I think a lot of people really see New York as one of the best places to ring in the new year. I don't love how crowded New York can be at that time. Obviously, millions and millions of people gather to watch the ball drop, and not only am I saying that after this year when gathering was frowned upon, but even previous years I always said that that was way too crowded for me, and I couldn't bear to stand in the large crowds for 12 plus hours while waiting for a prime spot to view the ball, especially when you get such a great shot of it on TV. But one place I would love to be in for the new year would actually be Las Vegas. I have seen that they light off fireworks on top of the various hotels that they have there. I'm not sure if they're all included or they just set them off specific ones, but it looks like a really awesome event. And Las Vegas is such a fun place anyway, and a place that I go to often, but I have never been there over the new year, and I think that would be an awesome place to bring it in.
Definitely. So for me, I have always wanted to bring in the new year in Australia. Most particularly Sydney, because you always see these big, extravagant fireworks and everything going off there. So that's just one place I've always wanted to bring in the new year, and I think that would be fun. And not only that, but Australia is one of the first places that actually gets to ring in the new year ahead of all the other countries. So that's just something I think that's very special.
Now, what is something you are looking forward to in the new year 2021?
So something I'm looking forward to more is seeing more places, obviously. Along with that, hoping to get more time this year with my family because I really wasn't able to do that. So I would definitely like to go see them a bit more often than I did this previous year.
So starting this past year with our Jamaica video, we began this YouTube journey, and we really appreciate all of you that have followed us so far. We are hoping to do a lot more travel, and Matt and I have actually been moving towards traveling full-time, so we're putting the things in place. So I'm looking forward to getting that started, and we are going to be beginning that journey in 2021, so that's one thing that I'm really excited for. I'm excited for the unknown places that we're not sure exactly we may visit. It'll be a great adventure, and as always, we're excited to bring you along with our adventures that we take.
So looking back at last year, what did last year teach you?
2020 taught me that there was a lot of hope in the world, and that people will, in bad times, come together, and we walk among real life heroes every day. And so we love to see people helping one another even in really terrible times. It taught me to value the close people you have in your life, and family and friends, because the life we have is short and it's fragile. So to really enjoy every moment and cherish everyone around you.
So to go along with that, I would have to say don't take anything for granted. I think we have found that out. So not just that, but everything, restaurants, hotels, everything has been affected so much that you just don't take anything for granted these days.
Our next question is, what was your biggest accomplishment of last year?
So I would have to say my biggest accomplishment for this past year was I was able to bring up a high school project of mine, and I created a children's book, which you can buy on Amazon.com, and that was one of my quarantine projects. So I was very thankful I was able to put that in place this year, and I was able to have some time to do that. So I'd have to say that was my biggest accomplishment of 2020.
In the summer of 2020, I was able to start up my own travel business. I used to work out of an office, and that gave me the idea that I loved selling travel and sharing my experience with others by helping them build the perfect trip. So I was able to take my experience with them and the knowledge that I learned and transfer it over to my own business, where I was able to design everything myself, continue my passion of helping others book amazing vacations. So that was a really memorable accomplishment that I was able to do.
So the next question here is, what was the single biggest time waster of this past year?
With so much time spent indoors, quarantining throughout a lot of the spring and summer, I think TikTok, I discovered that and had just spent many countless hours scrolling through the various content on TikTok, and it's a very popular platform. I didn't spend a lot of time posting on the platform, but I did spend a lot of hours and time scrolling through the content and discovering all the different creators on there. So I would say that I spent way too much time on there rather than doing other productive things.
So for me, I would have to say that the biggest single time waster, like we said, would probably be discovering old games, which we discovered, while we were quarantining, that we've played during our childhood and that we really, really fell in love with. So we brought those games back and were able to put them into use.
If you had to sum up your year in one word, what would it be?
So my word to describe this past year would be change, because there was a lot of it in this year, both me personally and all around the world. So I would have to say change would describe this previous year.
The word persistence comes to mind when looking back on the past year, to continue, not giving up and having faith that we'll get beyond this and there are better days to come.
So the next question is, what are you hoping for more of this coming year?
Well, in the new year, there was so much that changed in 2020 that I hope we will start to see some of the things that we were used to come back.
So for me, I would hope to see more travel within this coming year, and more places opening back up. So that's what I'm hoping for this coming year.
Is there anything that you're hoping for less of in 2021?
So something I'm hoping for there to be less of this coming 2021 is there to be less of the same stories. By that I mean, that's all the talk in like the news, for example. I just want everything just to be going back to normal, basically, rather than the same thing every day being repeated and repeated. So I want less of that same repetition from day to day and more switching things up.
In the new year, I'm hoping for less loss. We lost so many people in 2020. We lost a lot of celebrities that have been in our lives for many, many years and that we've looked up to. So less loss in 2021 would be a lot better than last year.
So what were some of the best movies/TV shows this past year?
One TV show that we watched on Netflix was a series called Love is Blind, and that show had the storyline of two strangers meeting in a pod where you weren't able to see one another, but you were able to hear and talk to one another. And based on that, you made the decision whether or not to get engaged to that person, and then the series continued to follow them on a stage of going on vacation together, living together, and then ultimately deciding whether they do want to continue marrying one another. This show really blew up on Netflix and you saw it all over social media. People were talking about it, so it was definitely one of the better series that we watched in 2020.
So some of my favorite movies/TV series of 2020 would be number one, of course, Tiger King, which came out really early this year. That was very captivating and unique. It was an interesting story. Along with that, later on in the mid-portion of the year was The Social Dilemma, which showed the ins and outs of social media. And the very last one that we watched that came out recently was called The Way I See It, which was about the White House photographer, both in the Reagan and Obama administration. It's just very, very interesting to watch, to see everything that he has captured throughout that time. So those are all very, very good movies to watch from the previous year.
What are some places you would like to travel in 2021?
So for 2021, I'm hoping that we are able to travel to more parks, some of the national parks, state parks, just parks in general, because I feel like this past year we've been cooped up inside and it's about time we get outside and enjoy nature.
One place that I'm really excited to take Matt this year before the year ends is to the Atlantis property in the Bahamas. It's a place that I've talked about going with him for quite some time. It's a really resort in the Caribbean in Nassau, Bahamas, and I've gotten to go there twice, but I really want to take him along because it's such a fun resort with a lot to do there. And since we had such a fun time in Jamaica, I know that the Atlantis Resort is just a couple notches above that with the water park and the mini pools. So I would love to go there sometime to Nassau this year and take him over to the Atlantis Resort.
So the final question is, what is your New Year's resolution for 2021?
In the new year, I'm really going to try and take charge of my overall health, now that I'm going to be 30, I know that it's important to stay focused on my health and make that a priority. So making sure that I'm keeping up on doctor visits and that sort of thing is going to be important to me, not only in this year but moving forward. So that's a resolution of mine, is to continue to stay active, making healthier choices. That sounds very typical, but for me it is important to at least make sure that I'm making health a priority and doing those doctor visits, getting panels, getting the vaccine when it's available. So just making sure that I'm good to go so that I can continue living a healthy and happy life.
So for me, I would have to say to focus more on things that I'm passionate about. For example, this year I would like to get into photography and dive more into it, post more often on my Instagram page and get into selling prints, and more of the business side of that. One of my goals for this coming year.
So that'll do it for our New Year's tag. We hope you enjoyed watching, and we wanted to say again, Happy New Year. If you do have any resolutions or interesting ways that you were able to bring in the new year 2021, leave us a comment down below and let us know. We always love interacting with you guys. And thanks again for those of you who stuck around, who watched this video, and we'll see you in next week's video. Bye!